The California Zephyr is considered by many to be the crown jewel of the Amtrak network. It runs for 2,400 miles between Chicago, Illinois and Emeryville, California. We've spent 2 days on it already, and we have to agree, this is an impressive trip. We are traveling on an Amtrak Rail Pass, which lets you take 10 trips in coach within a 30-day period. We're using our pass to travel across the country. Our journey started in Chicago, and after rolling over the Midwestern plains, climbing through the Rocky Mountains, and exploring all Salt Lake City has to offer, we're ready to board the next westbound Zephyr for the last leg of the train. Our destination, San Francisco. Hey everyone, I'm Tom.
I'm Lindsay.
And welcome to another Trains Are Awesome video. We're in Salt Lake City, Utah. We came here last night on the California Zephyr. We spent 24 hours here, and tonight we're departing once again on the next California Zephyr train, and we're riding it all the way down to the last stop of Emeryville, California. So Salt Lake Central is a mostly outdoor facility where you can transfer to the tracks light rail, buses, as well as the front runner commuter rail. But Amtrak does have an indoor facility, this lovely Am Shack over here. Unfortunately, it doesn't open till 10 p.m. The Am Shack looks a lot smaller on the outside than it does on the inside. Here, there was a waiting room with plenty of seating space, as well as a ticket desk.
Amtrak bathrooms in the Am Shack. Pretty basic for the ladies. 3 stalls. That one looks a little sus, but overall pretty nice. Thankful they have this.
The Zephyr is currently running about an hour late. Normally it gets here around 11. I think we should be able to get on before midnight. The perfect opportunity for some late night rail fanning. So Salt Lake City is actually kind of interesting because it's a crew change station, meaning that the engineers and the conductors swap here. And so that means the conductor scans your tickets before the train gets here. We just got our tickets scanned. We got our little slip for above our seats. And pretty soon, once everybody's ticket is scanned, we're gonna line up and wait for the train.
Coach passengers, I gave you a boarding pass with a 3-letter destination code on it. At the top is a car number. Either 510 or 511. The 510 car is the second to last car on the train. The 511 is the last car on the train. Once you get to your train car, the lower level has a luggage rack for your larger bags. Then, if you are not in lower level, you are going to head upstairs to the seating area.
Salt Lake City is a crew change station. The conductors and engineers who have brought the train here from Grand Junction, Colorado, are based here in Salt Lake City. We have been given instructions to make our way to the back car. The California Zephyr uses the famous Amtrak Superliner cars. The majority of seating on these Superliners is on the top floor. Luckily, we were able to get seats next to each other. These Superliner seats are very comfortable. The cushioning is good, and they recline very far as well. I have no trouble falling asleep in them. Speaking of which, it's after midnight. Good night, everybody. Good morning from the California Zephyr. I woke up a little bit before 7 and we were just pulling into Winnemucca. The next station is Reno. We're about an hour delayed, but we're making some pretty good speed, so we might be able to catch up. While we were sleeping, we ran past the southern edge of the Great Salt Lake, crossed the Bonneville Salt Flats, and traveled over the border between Utah and Nevada. This morning, we'll be running through the state of Nevada. There are only 3 Amtrak stations in the entire state: Elko, Winnemucca, and Reno. A 4th station, Sparks, closed in 2009 because it was just 3 miles from Reno. The original California Zephyr, back before Amtrak existed, was a train that was shared between 3 companies. The sections of the route correspond nicely with the days that we've spent on the train. On day 1, we rode over the former Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad trackage from Chicago to Denver. On day 2, we traveled along the former Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad from Denver to Salt Lake City. Now we're on the old Western Pacific line. The Western Pacific was built partially to compete with the Southern Pacific's overland route between Utah and the Bay Area. Despite the competition, in Nevada, the 2 companies had an agreement. They would use their 2 parallel single-track lines as a combined double-track line. Between Wells and Winnemucca, all eastbound trains, regardless of what company was running them, would use the Western Pacific tracks. Westbound trains used the tracks owned by Southern Pacific. Though both the Western Pacific and Southern Pacific have since been taken over by Union Pacific, the California Zephyr continues to use directional running, with eastbound trains using the former Western Pacific line and westbound trains using the former Southern Pacific line. We are approaching Reno, Nevada. The state's 3rd largest city with a population of 265,000, it is a famous gambling destination, much like the larger city of Las Vegas. Its nickname is the biggest little city in the world. A lot of passengers got on in Reno. I noticed this a few years ago when I was riding the Southwest Chief as well, when Albuquerque was a popular place for people to get on the train. These long-distance trains aren't just used by people like us who travel the whole way, they are a popular mode of travel for people traveling these medium distances, like between Reno and the Bay Area, or between Albuquerque and LA. After Reno, our climb into the Sierra Nevada begins. We are following the Truckee River, which flows out of nearby Lake Tahoe. Despite the fact that the Truckee River lies west of the Continental Divide, this water will not flow into the Pacific. Instead, it ends up in Pyramid Lake, where it will eventually evaporate. We just crossed the border and now we're in California, last state on this trip. This is Truckee, California, with a population of 16,000. No, it's not named after somebody's pickup truck. When the first European Americans came through the area, around the time of the Civil War, they were greeted by a Paiute chief. He said something along the lines of Truckee, which in his language meant everything is okay. However, they assumed the chief was telling them his name, so they called him Chief Truckee. Eventually, in the 1880s, the town was named Truckee. Imagine having a place named after you, except it's not your real name.
I do.
Immediately after Truckee, we were surprised to see a sizable pile of snow on the ground. It was May. Who would have thought of all the states we traveled through, California would be the one where our train would run through snow? Thank you.
Amtrak accepts cash. All major credit cards and debit cards.
We were in the desert like 2 hours ago. Soon we get a magnificent view of Donner Lake. The lake is named after the Donner Party, a group of pioneers from the Midwest who got stuck in the snow here in the Sierra Nevada. With their food run out, the surviving members resorted to cannibalism. I think I like the naming history of Truckee better.
Oh my gosh, this tunnel has like 2 feet of snow on it.
Here coming up in just a couple minutes. We're going to go through a 2-mile long tunnel through Mount Judah at our track speed of 30 miles an hour. It takes about 4 minutes to go through that 2-mile long tunnel. Upon exiting that tunnel, folks, if you look to your right and to your left, you might see the gondolas for Sugar Bowl Ski Resort. Also, folks, when we exit the tunnel, we will have reached our climb over the Sierra Nevadas this morning, about 7,000 feet or so. So once again, a couple minutes here, 2-mile long tunnel. Upon exiting that tunnel, we will be at Donner Summit.
Anyways, the snow and the terrain makes you think about the difficulties of building these tracks. Even when you don't consider the harsh weather, the Sierra Nevada is difficult terrain. Some points are so steep that when the first pioneers came through, they had to use ropes to lower their wagons. The majority of the work building these tracks was done by Chinese immigrant workers. These people came to the western U.S. by the thousands, offering railroad tycoons cheap labor. The Chinese laborers worked hard, but were underpaid. They were exposed to many unsafe working conditions, and in the towns and cities, anti-Chinese racism was rampant. Ultimately, in 1882, this racism culminated in the Chinese Exclusion Act, a law that banned Chinese people from immigrating. I said earlier that we were using the line of the former Western Pacific. Well, that's only partially true. The tracks we're on right now were built by the Central Pacific, which later became the Southern Pacific. These tracks were all part of the original Transcontinental Railroad. Though both lines are owned by Union Pacific today, there's a reason we're using former Southern Pacific tracks rather than Western Pacific. Amtrak was formed in 1971, taking over passenger trains from a variety of private railroad companies. However, the Western Pacific had already canceled their last passenger train, the California Zephyr, in 1970, so there was no train to take over. This, plus the Rio Grande's refusal to cooperate with Amtrak between Denver and Ogden, made Amtrak decide to combine the eastern section of the California Zephyr with the western section of Southern Pacific's city of San Francisco to form a train they called the San Francisco Zephyr. Like I explained in the last video, when the route through Colorado and Utah changed in 1983, Amtrak renamed the train the California Zephyr. However, here in California, they chose to remain on the former overland route. There was no need to change it. We're going back down. We've passed over the Sierra Nevada, and as you can see behind me, the snow is all gone. Arriving at Colfax means we've made it through most of the Sierra Nevada. Colfax is a city of less than 2,000 people, named after Schuyler Colfax. At the time of the town's naming, Colfax was Speaker of the House. He later went on to become the 17th Vice President of the United States. Now, with only a few hours left in this journey, I was doing some research about our destination. I was facing a dilemma. If you've seen any other videos on YouTube about the California Zephyr, you'll notice that most of them have some sort of slightly misleading title along the lines of taking the California Zephyr to San Francisco. But see, this is only part true. The Zephyr goes to the Bay Area, but it doesn't actually stop in San Francisco. There's a little bit of water that gets in the way. The last stop on the Zephyr is Emeryville. It used to be Oakland, which of course seems like a much more logical terminus, but because it is really difficult to turn trains around in Oakland, in 1997, Emeryville was permanently selected as the last stop. Now, no offense to any of my viewers that might live in Emeryville, but it's not exactly where most travelers on the California Zephyr want to be. So once you make it to the Bay Area, you need to find a way across the bay to get to San Francisco. Amtrak provides connections to a bus from Emeryville to the Embarcadero in San Francisco, and that's what we were planning to take, but I realized there might be a more convenient option. See, the wait for the bus in Emeryville was going to be about 40 minutes, but one stop before Emeryville at Richmond, there's a connection to the BART rapid transit system. Not only would it be a faster transfer, our hostel in San Francisco was also right next to a BART station, so that would be less of a walk than taking the bus. I decided to talk to Lindsay and see what she thought.
Hey, Lindsay. So we have two options. We can take a bus from Emeryville using our rail pass, and that'll leave at 5:40, get to San Francisco at 6:10. Or I can see if I can ask if we can get off one stop before Emeryville at Richmond, which is also a BART station, and we can take BART straight into downtown.
What would be faster?
I don't know. I mean, if we get to Emeryville at 5, it's going to be like a 40-minute wait.
We decided BART was the way to go. At Sacramento, I would find the conductor and ask them to switch our tickets to Richmond.
This is Sacramento, capital city of the state of California. We're getting really close to the Bay Area now, just a few more hours.
At the station in Sacramento, I asked the conductor to change our tickets. She was more than happy to oblige. Of course, it's much less of a problem to have passengers get off one stop earlier than one stop later. After having spent the past several days in multiple mountain ranges, it was pretty surreal to travel through this bright, flat landscape. This is the Central Valley. By now, the stops are closer together. We share the route with Amtrak's Coast Starlight and Capital Corridor services.
Whoa!
These idyllic landscapes form the Grizzly Island Wildlife Area. The water beyond these islands make up Grizzly Bay and Sassoon Bay. In a little bit, you'll see the giant, imposing ships of the Sassoon Bay Reserve Fleet. This is a group of Navy ships that are technically out of commission, but can be reactivated within 4 months in case of an emergency. People in the area often refer to it as the Mothball Fleet.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are stopped waiting on one of our sister trains to meet us here. We should be on the move in 15 to 20 minutes.
From this point of view, it looks like those big ships are just resting on the swamp.
Once we're on the move again, we cross the Benicia-Martinez Bridge over the Carquinez Strait. Almost immediately after, we stop at Martinez.
This is a cool bridge.
Our next station stop will be Martinez. In just a few minutes, Martinez will be our next station stop. We will be making 2 spots, one for sleeping cars and one for coaches.
Until Richmond, we hug the San Pablo Bay. Up until the very end, the California Zephyr treats us to breathtaking views. Richmond is approaching fast, so let's summarize the long journey we've just made on the California Zephyr. The Zephyr is worth all the hype it receives. I've been on several scenic Amtrak trains, but I don't think any route crams quite as much impressive scenery into one trip as this one does. Traveling by Amtrak is so relaxing. It allows you to slow down and really appreciate what's outside. You're free to walk around, enjoy food, and the company of other travelers. Taking the train is the best way to see the country. And breaking up the trip halfway was a good idea to be able to spend the night in a bed and to be able to explore a new city.
We're almost to Richmond, California. Time to head downstairs and grab our last bag. Can you believe our time on the California Zephyr has come to an end? Welcome to Richmond. And over there are some BART trains, and that's the reason we got off here in Richmond.
Like I said, the transfer to BART is very easy. We're going to take BART into San Francisco, but I think this video has been going on long enough. Time to call it a day. In our next video, join us as we ride Bay Area Rapid Transit for the first time. We're going to spend the next few weeks sharing videos about the transit systems we explored here in the Bay Area, then get ready for more Amtrak trip reports. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to Trains Are Awesome and follow our Instagram to stay updated with our travels. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.